Good evening, everybody, and welcome to UVC headquarters. This is UMass Sports Weekly, your number one source for all things UMass sports. As you probably know if you're the fan of the show, I am your host, Tommy Caluti, and as I usually say, and as is usually true, we have a great show for you today. Now, as it is the first show back from break, we're going to have more of a summary show today. We're going to talk about the hockey team, men's basketball team, women's basketball team, especially how they're faring in conference play now that conference play has started up. As you know, conference play, very important, getting to the A10 tournaments, Hockey East tournaments, and then we go to the playoffs. So, who are we going to bring in today? First, we're going to talk with Phil Sanzo, Phil, our dual reporter. He's going to talk about the men's basketball team and their recent struggles in the A10, despite some very promising wins and performances. After that, old reliable Liam Byrne comes on, talks about how Coach Carvel had a little bit of a rough start to his Hockey East career, but we'll see if that team can rebound. Then, to finish off the show, Victoria Svenson is going to come on to talk about the reeling women's basketball team, and she'll try to shed some light on what's wrong with them. As I said, like I usually say, Victor Cruz is going to come right up, he's going to welcome you in, and we are just going to have a phenomenal show. You're going to have a blast. Remember, this is UMass Sports Weekly.
This is UMass Sports Weekly.
Welcome back. I am here with Phil Sanzo to talk about the men's basketball team who, over break, opened up A10 conference play. Now, Phil, I'm going to do a little bit of foreshadowing. Wasn't very good.
Nah, it wasn't the best.
We have a team who came into the season with a lot of potential, very large things expected from this team, and this far they haven't really come through. I believe the record is 12-9.
12-10.
12-10. They're over 500, but the record in conference play is abysmal. So why don't you break that down, be a little more specific than I am, and tell us what's going on with this team.
Well, I guess they're 2-7 right now in the conference, so we'll just mention the 2 wins against Dayton, which is very surprising given Dayton's the top team in the conference.
Dayton, I believe, has been in the last two, definitely the last two,
yeah,
perhaps the last
they're
three
definitely
NCAA tournaments.
They're a namesay in the NCAA tournament. You always hear them. And then you have they beat St. Joe's also, which is a little deplenished after losing Bembry last year and all that. But still, they won those 2 games, but they've lost everything else. I mean, it's really a matter of inconsistency with this team. They usually start off slow, they get back, make it a close game, and they can't fully cap it off. That's really been the model of these games so far. We actually saw that with GMU, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I mean, you look at the game against Rhode Island, they actually had a pretty decent lead in that game in the first half, and they blew it in the second half. So it's really just a matter of the team's not really playing coherently. They're not really playing together, and that's really hurt them in the long run. You can maybe look to the amount of freshmen and think that they're just not really gelling together just yet. I'm sure UMass fans hope that's the case. This team obviously has tons of talent, as we saw in non-conference. So it's been up and down, mostly down in the conference play. So they have 9 more games left, half of the conference schedule. See how they can fare there.
Now, because the record has been so poor in conference play, they haven't been able to keep up an overall record. They're not really giving themselves much of a hope with regards to the NCAA tournament. However, there is the chance you went out, go through the A10 tournament. A couple things I want to point out quickly. In conference play, there are only 2 players averaging more than 10 points a game. That's Rashawn Holloway and Dante Clark, and nobody is averaging more than 8 rebounds a game.
Yeah.
So rebounding, we've talked about, has been an issue all season. It was an issue last season, so recurring problems. Now, Phil, you talked about George Mason is coming up. Give us a little preview of that game.
No, George Mason just happened. LaSalle is coming up.
LaSalle.
No, in the George Mason game, they started the game off better than they have started games off. They were scoring early. I mean, you look at the St. Louis, they barely scored in the first half of St. Louis. It was a really tough game to watch. But George Mason game, they looked better. They just kind of drifted off towards the end. At one point, they were down by 13 in the first half, which seemed to be their MO. They drift off, they drift away because they can't score or they're not getting the rebounds. They came back in the second half and got actually down to 2. Now, the most heartbreaking part of it was they got the score within 2, but just could not get over that hump. They could not tie the game. There was a point where Dante Clark went to the line with a chance, with 2-3 free throws with a chance to tie the game, and he missed them both. I mean, when one of your top scorers misses both his free throws, that can't happen. So stuff like that really hurt the Minutemen. a gift at the end of the game. Otis Livingston went up for a free throw that would have made a 3-point game that he missed. He never missed it. I think the George Mason coach said he's the top free thrower in George Mason's history. He missed it. They had a chance for a 3-pointer to win the game. They found the open CJ Anderson. He whiffed on it. He couldn't even get it in there. So opportunities like that, missing them, that really hurt. We can talk a little about Giroux coming up in the LaSalle game, but he had a rough start in the game also. He picked it up in the second half. A lot of the team's success rides on him. So, yeah, that game was almost embodied everything that conference game has been for the UMass basketball this season.
So quickly, before we get to LaSalle, I want to talk a little bit about expectations. Just briefly, You had a big freshman class coming in, a lot of expectations. You had Chris Baldwin, Dejan Giroux, Bryson Gresham, Lawan Pipkins. Do you think they've fallen short on those expectations? Do you think Kellogg just whiffed on recruiting, or do you think these are just works in progress?
He definitely didn't whiff on recruiting. I mean, there have been moments in these games where, like, that person's absolutely a 4-star recruit. Bryson Gresham absolutely is going to be a strong number 4 in this team going forward. Dejan Giroux can be the best player in this conference, absolutely. So I don't think it's a whiff. I think it's a matter of you got a really big team, really. You got a lot of guys that all earn playing time. It's a matter of how you get to play them in which spots. We're not so sure if Derek Kellogg has figured that out yet, where to play certain guys, and that's something I think he'd admit. And that's something going forward that hopefully they can figure it out. Like I said, there's a lot of guys that play well in some spots and don't play well in others, and that goes into being a freshman. I mean, they're learning this just as much as we are. So I definitely wouldn't say that he whiffed. Expectation-wise, I think when you have such a top 25 recruiting class, you seem like, oh my God, that this is going to be a really good team, and they definitely have not fulfilled those expectations. So it's easy to be disappointed. I think you need to look at it at face value, though. You have these guys for the next 4 years. You have the exact same team next year, which is going to be huge for them. They lose nobody. And then you have this core group of freshmen for the next 4 years. Granted, they stay the whole time. So that's something to be excited for. Look at this year as a learning year, really, for this team.
So before we let you go, we get the LaSalle game coming up. I know conference play is somewhat of a moot point at this part of the season. Mostly looking forward to the A-10 tournament and trying to win out there to salvage any hope of a tournament bid. But preview the game for us. Tell us what we should look forward to.
LaSalle's an 11-18. They're 5-3, so they're one of the middle of the pack teams in the A-10. So any team like that is going to be a challenge for UMass. I mean, I think after the St. Louis game, I think it's safe to say that you can't go into any game assuming UMass is going to win it. So
that's a comforting notion, Phil.
I mean, it's the truth, really. And I mean, LaSalle's lost their last 3, so they're going to want to get back. I mean, UMass has lost his last 3. So either way, a losing streak will be broken on Saturday.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, a losing streak is going to be broken tomorrow.
That's going to help me sleep tonight.
They're going to have to. UMass is also going to have to cut down their turnovers. I mean, they are a team that turns the ball over a lot. You can look to Dejan Giroux to that a lot because as a point guard, the guy has a lot of assists. He leads the team in assists with I think it was 95. I mean, that's a lot of assists. And sometimes he tries too hard to get those assists. He tries too hard to make something happen and ends up throwing the ball away.
For example, assists in conference, he has 42, turnovers 36.
Exactly.
It's almost 1-to-1. So.
Yeah, because you could tell. He really wants to make things happen, which is, I mean, because he has that awareness of sometimes he forces it. And, I mean, that's something he'll grow out of. But if they can cut those down, I mean, they'll really get a lot of their opportunities.
All right, thank you very much, Phil. Tune into the LaSalle game. We'll give you updates via social media on what's going on with that. Thank you very much, Phil.
No problem.
When we come back, Liam Byrne is going to come on. We're going to talk about the Reeling men's hockey team. So stay tuned. ever since coming back from break, the men's hockey team has not done well. Ever since break started, I believe they are 1-7, a record that is not very good. To boot, that record is 1-7 in the Hockey East, the conference where they're supposed to be performing well. Now, before we get into any more bad news, a little bit of good news. UMass is in action tonight, and right now they're up 3-2 against Northeastern. So I'm going to call in Liam Byrne now. Liam, 1-7, and we have a team that's not doing very well right now. So other than the bleak outlook I gave us, can you give us a little bit more of an in-depth recap of what happened over break?
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, 1-7 over break. They're 5-19-2 overall, and right now we're looking promising. We're winning over Northeastern right now. Where Northeastern is lower in the conference, where we are in last place, or UMass is in last place in the conference, where Northeastern is third to last. But over break, with the Hockey East losses to BU, UMass Lowell, BC, and Maine. Definitely, the worst loss could have been to AIC, a team who UMass beats every year. It's basically UMass's only win, and they're our neighbors from Springfield, and UMass got shut out 3-0 in that game, and that was early in break, and that's just a definite, blows the wind down to your sails, and it doesn't happen. If you're going, more into break against these hard Hockey East teams, a 3-0 loss to AIC is not a way you want to play hockey. And the only win was against Alabama Huntsville, which was on the road. And who has heard of Alabama Huntsville?
A lot of ice
hockey
down there in Alabama.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and and over break, UMass was outscored 26-10. So that will definitely not help in the upcoming games this season. And I have no answers.
No answers right now, and it's not like UMass hasn't had an opportunity. Usually they come off their opening schedule, they soften it up a little bit, then they go straight into the Hockey East. This year, like we talked about offset, they had an opportunity to go on a bit of a run. They beat number 12 Notre Dame, or at the time number 12 Notre Dame, and then had games at UConn, Princeton, 2 games at newly formed program Arizona State, Alabama, Huntsville, Minnesota, and AIC. Now, you're not expected to beat Minnesota, but AIC, Alabama, Huntsville, Princeton, UConn, 2 games at Arizona State. This team could easily have 10 wins at this point, and they just don't. So, it's been a complete disappointment,
Definitely.
And Coach Carvel has to do some real soul-searching here.
Yeah, he really does.
You talked about the team having only 1 win.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that put them in the conference?
In the conference right now, I mentioned earlier, they are in dead last.
Well, that is just
Yes, they're in dead
phenomenal.
last, which is unfortunate because, with a new coach and a new coaching staff and a whole new year and new players and everything, you'd expect a little rebuilding, obviously, and a little optimism. But it is a rebuilding year for UMass, and things can only go up from here, hopefully. They're in dead last right now, standing at a 2-11-1 record in the conference with only 5 points. And they're on a 7-game losing streak right now. Hopefully it will be snapped tonight with a home victory
So what you're
against
telling me
Northeastern.
is calling it 1-7 in the past 8 games was generous.
Very
Instead
generous.
of just saying 0-7 in the past 7.
Pretty much with a win to Alabama Huntsville. But yeah, so
The Goliath of a program.
of the Goliath of college hockey. 3-9-1 they are at the Mullen Center, and 1-8-0 on the road. And it doesn't seem like any winter sport likes to win over at the Mullen Center. There has to be some Mullen Center curse because women's basketball, men's basketball, and hockey don't really fare well at the Mullen Center after break. And it's an interesting thing to think about. But, I love the Mullen Center. It's a nice place.
Yeah,
but
nice place. Nice enough
we
play.
need to see more wins. Need to see more wins out of all 3 teams.
And we say it every year. They are in a tough conference. Boston University ranked number 3. BC, I believe, is 8.
Yeah.
UMass Lowell at 10. Vermont at 12. So you're facing tough competition. We're not expecting wins every game. But when you're coming up against teams like UConn, like Merrimack, like Northeastern, who's in a down year, Coach Carvel needs to get these kids, or these guys, starting to get some wins against those programs to really build up a rapport amongst the college hockey elite. So, Liam, we haven't talked about many positives, and we like to be positive on this show.
Always do.
Ryan Wishow's goals against is still below 3, a save percentage above 9.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's the positive right there, Ryan Wishow in goal.
Is there any hope to have anything happen this season, or are we looking at another rebuild?
We're looking at another rebuild, like I said earlier. New coach, new players. I literally have in my notes, it's just, is there any hope? No. unfortunately, I love being hopeful, but for this team, with that kind of record and where they're at now in the Hockey East, it doesn't look too good for Carvel and the boys right now. He's a talented coach. I mean, his former team right now in St. Lawrence is 14th nationally ranked, and that kind of has to put a sear in him because I think some of those guys that are on that team, he recruited. But he took on a good opportunity here at UMass, hopefully to rebuild this team, which it needs desperately. And I say come next year, get some new recruits, brand new, fresh start to the season, and hopefully we'll look on for successful hockey for years to come and for fans to go out and see a good game at the Mullins Center and hopefully win games, out of all the winter sports that we have.
Well, thank you very much, Liam. We'll keep you updated on social media regarding the game tonight and on everything else with regards to UMass hockey. We'll see you after the show.
Sounds good.
When we come back from break, Victoria Svenson is going to come on to talk about the early season surprise that was the women's basketball team that have now become the regular season, well, this is what we expected team. We're going to talk about it. Stay tuned. And welcome back to the show. Unfortunately, the role of depression that we've been on talking about UMass sports will continue. Luckily, though, Victoria Svenson here to talk about it with us. The women's basketball team started off in a great way. They beat a couple of teams. They had Maggie Mulligan and Haley Lydell putting up A10 conference performances, and now as conference play has started, they've kind of slid back. So, Victoria, the Minutewomen had their week of traveling. It started in Pittsburgh and went down to Florida. Then they won in LaSalle, almost won. Game fell apart. They ended up losing. Tell us what happened in that game.
Yeah, it looked promising. We led by 18 points at one point during the third quarter. So it was the last 3 minutes of the game when the Explorers really took control. They went on a 13-2 run to really steal the game. With 31 seconds left, though, it still looked like it could come in the Minutewomen's favor. It was tied. And then, unfortunately, the Minutewomen turned it over, 7 seconds left. Explorers hit a free throw, three-pointer to seal the deal. It slipped right through their fingers. It marks the fourth time this season when the Minutewomen have lost by just 6 points or less.
Well, a problem for this team has been blowing big leads. Blowing big leads. They've blown a couple in the past several games, all in the A10. I feel like a broken record saying that.
I know.
But in the most recent game they had, the Minutewomen had to overcome a deficit of their own. Now, do you want to tell us about that game at VCU and how that, spoiler alert, ended?
They went down to Virginia. It was kind of the opposite story. The tables were really turned. They were down by 11 in the third, but put together a promising rally. They cut the lead to 3 with just 3:05 left in the game. After a few good runs by the Rams, it just looked like it was going to be done. But with 4 seconds to go, UMass made it a 1-point game with a three-pointer from Haley Lydell. Unfortunately, VCU's Thorpe hit a pair of free throws with 0.1 left on the clock. So that was it for the Minutewomen. So the week of travel to Virginia, Pittsburgh didn't really work out for them. 2 road losses.
Yeah, the beautiful city of Pittsburgh that they got to travel to. Another important thing to note in that game, there was a clock management issue. Coach Tori Verdi came out and questioned there was an out-of-bounds play. The refs decided to put 0.1 on the clock. Coach thought there should have been 1.3 seconds on the clock. So
who knows? Maybe that could have made the difference.
Something to think about. But I'm sure if you ask Coach, he'd tell you that there's no excuse for them to be in that position.
Exactly.
So, Victoria, we talk about how poorly the team has done on this road trip. Were there any standout players? I think I can guess who you're going to talk about.
Yeah.
But why don't you talk about them anyway, because they definitely deserve it.
Yeah, we've seen Haley Lydell and Maggie Mulligan put up great seasons. Haley Lydell's kind of forced. She's a freshman, plays 40 minutes a game. She's outstanding. She's the reason this team's really in it. She put up 20 points, high scorer of the game against LaSalle, and a career high of 13 rebounds. Then at VCU, she continued highest Minutewomen score with 18 points, and that was her third straight double-double on the season with 10 rebounds. Lydell moved into second in freshman scoring history also this week, and she's owned 383 points, 11 away from breaking Bria Stallworth's freshman scoring record. Maggie Mulligan at LaSalle put up her 16th double-double on the season, 12 points, 11 rebounds. At VCU, she followed up with almost her 17th, 11 points, 9 rebounds. But play St. Louis tomorrow night at the Mullins Center, 7 p.m. They stand second in the A10 right now, though. So we'll see what these two ladies can do against them. We're going to seek our 4th conference win, so we'll see how it goes.
St. Louis, obviously a juggernaut in the A10, but hopefully this team can pull a win out.
Yeah.
Go strong into the A10 tournament. Thank you, Victoria. Some more unfortunate news. Liam Byrne has just signaled to me that Northeastern has tied the game at 3-3 in the second period, so again, we'll keep you posted on that. But that's going to do it for us here live, visually on the show. You can keep following us on social media, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram. We'll give you all the updates you need on all the teams. We're going to be right back here next week, Tuesday. New show time is at 7:30 because of conflicts beyond my control. But you know what? 7:30, a little more prime time. I kind of like it. Gives you guys a nice chance to settle in, cool off after a nice day of work, and get your daily dose of UMass sports. I'm your host, Tommy Kaludi. Hope you have a great week, UMass, and we'll see you back here next week. Peace out.
Boom.